My name is Karyn Gabbey. I am the program manager for flight service procedures, and I've been with Envoy for 6 years. I'm responsible for the in-flight procedures manual for flight attendants, the SMS program, and I'm responsible for the electronic flight bag, the EFB, for flight attendants. My family, my father, both of my brothers were aircraft mechanics. My dad taught aircraft maintenance. My daughter became a flight attendant with Envoy. At the time, I was a classroom teacher and I was looking for a career change. She convinced me to apply for Envoy as a flight attendant. My other daughter also works for crew scheduling with American. It's just kind of all in the family. When I first started with Envoy, I spent about 8 months as a flight attendant before I became a flight attendant instructor. Even when I was in new hire training, I knew that I wanted to be an instructor because it was the perfect combination of my old career and my new career.
Stay down.
I became an instructor and very quickly as an instructor realized that there were people who were developing our courseware, and that was very interesting to me. After about 2 years, I became a developer assistant for flight service, and I started creating the courses that were being taught to new hires. I went over to flight service procedures. Eventually there became a developer position that was open with maintenance, and so I moved over into the maintenance group. I was there probably about a year as well. My old boss, the program manager for flight service procedures, took a position with safety, and I knew that that's where I wanted to be. That's how I ended up here in this position. I love Envoy, but what really keeps me here are the people that I work with. It's such an amazing team. My boss and her boss are just fantastic to work with. The people that assist me are just extremely knowledgeable and helpful, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I love what I do. It's pretty amazing. If someone were interested in applying for Envoy, I'd say go for it. There is great opportunity within the company.